Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host,
Brett
Gilliland.
Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland, and today I've got Dr. Ed Hightower with me. Ed, how you doing?
Oh, the pleasure's all mine, Brett.
It's good to be with you. It's good to be with you. So, well, people that don't know you, probably everybody's watching this knows who you are. I mean, you've had a heck of a career.
Well, I've been very fortunate. I've had a lot of support along the way and very, very blessed.
Yes, absolutely. So, former superintendent at Edwardsville High School, 19 years in Edwardsville, but 40 years in education.
40 years in education, 19 years as superintendent of the Edwardsville School District. I went there in 1996 and retired in 2015. So,
amazing. In 36 years as an NCAA referee.
36 years as an NCAA referee, 33 years in the Big Ten, 12 Final Fours, the World Games.
Man.
Represented the United States at the World Games in Buenos Aires. I represented the United States at the Goodwill Games in St. Petersburg, Russia. So I was very, very fortunate.
That's incredible. I remember you in my Fighting Illini days when I was, a younger man and watching my Flying Illini, which I want to talk about that later, if that's all right. So, but if you can, Ed, give us a little lay of the land, the backstory. You don't just wake up and spend 40 years and get your doctorate and have an amazing marriage of 49 years, two daughters, NCAA, all the stuff we just mentioned. But what's some of that backstory? Some of your story.
Backstory. I'm just one of these young individuals, very fortunate. I grew up in the South. My mom and dad divorced when I was 12 years old. I'm the second of 8 children. I never thought that I would complete even a high school education when I was in the South.
Wow.
Things were tough. My mom moved to Alton, Illinois in 1966. And she always made education a priority, education, church, giving back to the community a priority for all 8 of us siblings.
Yeah.
And we were very fortunate. And from that point, I played basketball, baseball at Alton High School. In 1970, I graduated and went to SIU on a basketball scholarship, played for the Cougars.
I didn't know that. And
started refereeing intramural basketballs when these poor kids didn't have any money, but started refereeing intramural basketball in 1971 for $1.25 a game.
Wow.
Think about that one for a moment.
Man.
And I'd watch, I had no relationship with officials when I played. But, when you can referee the various fraternities in college and some of those guys who think that they were the best players ever and some who never could play, you get a mixture and a variance of
that
of
testosterone of my fraternity's better than your fraternity.
There you go. And so I graduated in 1974. I started teaching. My wife and I were married, and then I got a raise for refereeing. I started refereeing Open City League recreation basketball, and I got a raise from $1.25 a game to $5 a game.
Oh,
so I was in seventh heaven. Yeah.
5 times more money.
You got it, and I would work 3 games. 3 games a night, 3 times a week. Back in 1974, that was pretty good money. Good, nice supplement.
Absolutely.
So, and from that point, it just happened. At the same time, I was back at SIU working on my my master's in education to become an administrator. I got that. I was very fortunate to have had a great mentor in the superintendent who took me under his wings, this young African-American kid, and I went into administration at a very young age. And I'll tell you, Brett, of the 40 years I spent in education, 37 of those years were actually in administration.
Oh my goodness!
So I had a lot of opportunities to screw it up and make mistakes.
Exactly. So what were your expectations like? So you said you grew up in the South, didn't have any money, but yet I would think to do that, your expectations were high.
Expectations are extremely high that you have to work. You had to work. My mom instilled work ethic in all of us that there was no compromise.
What did she do for a living?
Oh gosh, she worked in the fields, cotton fields. She was a nurse. She went back and got her certificate to be a nurse, and then of course when we moved here in '66, she worked at Olin Industry where money was plentiful, work was plentiful, and she was able to care for us. But our value system was simple. Work, be honest, go to church, give something back. It's simple.
The world needs that, right?
It's so simple. And I never forgot that. And that's what I believe in today. And that's how we brought up our daughters. That's the message that I send clearly to young people, or I've sent over my years. And even now, I'm heavily involved with 2 projects. I'm building 40 affordable houses in Alton, starting March. And I put together white paper to revitalize Venice. That community is low income, poverty stricken, driven, no grocery store, no healthcare facilities. We were fortunate to get them a new elementary school, which we will break ground there in March of $26 million, thanks to our legislators. We're working to get them a grocery store. We're working to get them a healthcare facility. And then we're going to put 40 homes there. We're working to bring in a rec center for the young people there. So again, giving back to the community. The second initiative that I have going now, for the Madison High School students, we've started a scholarship fund for those high school students, whereby we will be able to give anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 scholarships each year beginning in 24. So again, I'm pretty busy.
Active.
But the thing, it's all on my time. It's not like I have to punch a clock now. It's not like I've got. When I was superintendent, I had 7,600 students in the Edwardsville School District. And parents are very demanding, and so I don't have the parents screaming and hollering at me. I miss the kids. Same thing with refereeing. I don't have folks like you from the old Illini screaming and hollering at me.
That was a terrible call.
That was a terrible call, Hightower. You hate Illinois.
Right.
And then I go to Michigan.
You hate Michigan.
I hate
you
Michigan.
Hate Indiana, right.
So, I don't have that now. I just wake up and do the kinds of things that that meets my value system of giving back and so on. Then during the wintertime, my wife and I, 49 years, I go to Florida and spend time there. So
Work on that golf game.
I do.
What's the handicap these days?
My handicap is a 7. My index.
Boom.
My index is about an 8, 7 out at Sunset Country Club. The golf has improved since I retired because I'm not on the phone all of the time.
I check this email and respond to that message.
There you go.
And do all that. So here's the thing you've mentioned a couple times is your values organization, right? So your values, I think we think of as an organization. We have to be values aligned and mission aligned. And what I have found through my 22, 23 year carear is when those things are aligned, good things happen, right?
Absolutely.
But when they're not, bad things happen, right?
Absolutely. And the reason there are no guardrails. When your value system is aligned, there are guardrails that keep you focused. When I represented the United States, I remember this so vividly. My first trip to the World Games. That was the first time that I'm on major international stage.
Yeah.
Mike Krzyzewski was the coach of the U.S. team. I'm the referee. What an awesome responsibility to represent your country. And as they prepare you to go to a setting like what my first trip was, they tell you it's not if you're going to be propositioned, it's when. And the simple answer is just say no.
And walk through, dive a little deeper there. Proposition to do what? Like, what's an example?
Proposition, giving money.
Yeah.
To
make a different call.
Make a different call or something like that. So yeah, all of those tangibles are there to incentivize you to do the wrong things.
Right.
But if your value system is in check, you're going to do the right things when people aren't around. And that's the key thing I tell young people. Don't get caught up with just doing the right things or the right thing when somebody's watching you. The big test is, can you do the right thing or the right things when people aren't? Yep. And that's where the value system comes into play. The safeguards, the safe rails, guardrails are there to keep you centered and keep your eye on the mark and so on, and you don't get sidelined.
Yep. So it's my buddy Steve Winhoff. We were talking last night. I told him that you were coming on, and he's a big basketball guy, and so shout out to Steve. But he's like, how do you handle objectivity? Surely there were some coaches or programs or players that were harder to, they were going to be on you the whole time, right? And so how did you stay objective with that, of not trying to choose sides, or when you go represent America to not say, I want my guys to win?
The guardrails. Yeah. Again, the value system, honesty, integrity, hard work.
Yeah.
And you put those all in that as a potpourri. Guess what's going to come out?
Yeah. Hence why you did 12 Final Fours.
You got it.
Yeah.
And Coach Knight and I were very close. A lot of people don't know that. We talk, we would bump heads on the floor. But off the floor, we talked a lot about education, about young people. One of the smartest individuals you ever want to be around. And guardrails. Okay, you always know that going into that game, you have to be not subjective, but objective. You see it, you call it, and let the chips fall where they may. But by the same token, you're there to lend a hand as to both sides. And when I say that, I would go to, say, Coach Knight, for example, and say, hey, number 54, he's got his hands on him.
Yep.
Now, I'm telling you to take care of it.
If you don't take care of it, you're going to take care of it.
Then you go down to the other end, Michigan State, at that time, Judd Heathcote.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to tell you a little story about Lou Henson in just a moment. But you would do the same thing on the Michigan State. And the coaches know that. And they respect you. Yeah. And they know when that game is on the line, they can trust you to do the right thing. Yeah. It goes back to what I said earlier, the right thing. Not that you aren't going to make mistakes. Not that you aren't going to miss a call. But they trust you to do the right thing. Yeah. Lou Henson played a very important role in Ed Hightower getting to the Big Ten, and I never knew about it until 6 years after I was in the Big Ten, after I became a crew chief. Lou Henson was in this area recruiting, saw me refereeing a high school basketball game, called the Big Ten the next day and said, let me tell you, I saw this young African-American he is going to be good. You need to get someone down there and take a look at this guy and start tracking him. He's going to be good. And somebody is going to get him. Another league is going to get him. You need to take a look. Well, lo and behold, I'm 25 years old. I go to my first camp at Michigan State, Big Ten camp. Out of 110 campers, they only took 2 campers and added us to what they used to call in the Big Ten our satellite crew. That was the officials that they would hire at that time at a Western Illinois University, which was a Division II, Eastern, Northern Iowa, okay? And they would track your experience.
Start there.
You got it.
Yeah.
And then from that point, 2 years later, the supervisor of the Big Ten called the Missouri Valley and said, look, we've got this young kid. And again, I don't know this at the time. I know, as they say, I know nothing.
You just got the call and said,
yeah, exactly.
Yes, sir.
So I was selected to do the National JUCO Tournament. I am now 27 years old. Yeah. The National JUCO Tournament in Hutchinson, Kansas. And Johnny Overby, who was the Missouri Valley supervisor, I didn't know he was at the game. He sat and watched me work for 3 days in a row, okay? And with that, he came in that third night after the game and said, I've watched you 3 days. I want to bring you into the Missouri Valley. Brought me into the Missouri Valley. I fooled some people. And I worked there 2 years in the Missouri Valley. And then the Big Ten said that we're going to bring you and put you on a crew. So they put me on a crew at 29 years old. Now you think about this. Now.
That's young.
Young? Yeah. That is too young.
Okay.
That's
okay.
TOO, too young.
Right.
And but I was very fortunate. I walked in, and let me tell you, you think you're ready. Well, you find quickly when you walk into an Illinois and they've got 14,000 crazies there, orange crushes on you majorly, or you go to Indiana and you got 16,000 people there, a sea of red. Yeah. And at that time, Coach Knight was just like a giant. Yeah. He was a giant in the game and a big man to boot. I had seen him on TV, but I did not know him. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I go out there, but I had been told by another prominent veteran referee. His name was Jim Bain.
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. So you're not gonna believe this. I thought you were gonna say this. He was my neighbor growing up in Mattoon, Illinois.
Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, Jim Bain was my mentor.
He's literally one of the things I was gonna bring up. Jim Bain. Yeah.
Jim Bain, Mattoon. You're right, banker and all. Yeah. Well, Jim and I used to fly.
That's so funny.
Jim was a pilot at one time. I leased an airplane. And had someone flying me around, and we would hook up. I'd go to Decatur, pick him up, depending on where we were going. But the initiation to the Big Ten, Jim, I would talk to him all of the time, and I said, Jim, tell me, how do you handle a Coach Knight? How do you handle? And he says, and he used to call me Eddie. Eddie, Coach Knight, he's going to test you when you first get in the Big Ten. You can take it to the bank. Judd Heathcote is going to test you when you get to one of his games. He says, now, Coach Knight is going to say something to you. It may be religious. It may be political. And he may say something racially.
Oh, my God.
Because he wants to see how you're going to react.
How thick a skin you have.
Don't react. And he says, all of these coaches in their own way will test you, and here's why. They're not concerned about you at home. They're concerned about you when Indiana goes to Purdue and that 15,000 people are there at Mackey Arena, or when he goes to Illinois and they've got the 14,000 people or so there. They want to know how you're going to behave on the road. So I get asked this story often. What's the first thing Coach Knight said to you? So this young kid, 28 years old, I walk out there on the floor. We get there. We have to be there an hour and a half before game time. Nobody's in the arena. Then we have to walk out on the floor 30 minutes before game time. We walk out there 30 minutes before game time. There's just a sea of red, 16,000 people, sea of red. And then Coach Knight, at that time, he would normally come out a minute before the game. That was his MO. Well, he knew that he had this young official. He comes out about 2.5 minutes before game time. The fans, they stand, "Hail to the king, hail to the king." And so he walks by the three officials. He goes down, shakes hands with the opposing coach. Yeah. So he comes back, and I'm so scared. I am so scared of this young kid because he, all of the history.
Throwing chairs, screaming, yelling.
But just his MO, he was a national figure.
Yeah.
So he goes down, and he gets about 6 inches, his rear end, from hitting his seat. And he comes back, and he gets right in my face. And he says, "I hope you're not shocked tonight when I get on you.
Oh,
It's going to be chewing that, and you can fill in the words that you've
this
never.
Before the game even
this
starts.
is before the
This
game,
is
and the
amazing.
fans are eating it up.
Yeah.
The
He's right in
fans
your
are
face.
eating it up. This will be a chewing like you've never had before.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Big Ten. Now you think about that for a moment, and now. So that was my intro to Coach Knight. Well, in talking with Jim said, "Listen, the way you handle Coach Knight, you don't you handle him the same way I want you to handle every other coach. When you get near the coach where he's standing, get out on the floor, and then when you start to go back down the floor, you go. You don't linger. Doing a timeout." Get out on the floor. You don't need to. And I get angry now when I see these officials standing over there by the coaches. They are not there to be your friend.
Nope.
They don't give you candy. They're not handing out candy.
No.
So, bottom line, I always adopted that. And that was my way of handling coaches. Now, the next game, I've got conference game.
Uh-oh.
I've got Judd Heathcote at Iowa against Lute Osen.
Yeah.
Okay.
I forgot
Judd,
he was there.
pardon me?
I forgot he was there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They had just opened Carver Hawkeye Arena.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, think about this for a moment. The Iowa fans, they are rabid. Because again, in Iowa, think about it. There are no major league sports. It's just all. This is the big deal. Yeah. This is the big leagues, as they call it. Judd Heathcote didn't like young officials because he could not trust them. Yeah. And I understand why. Now, as I got into it, I quickly learned that. But again, same thing. Jim said, "Ed, he's going to say something to you. Just let it go." So we go out there. I'm working with this veteran referee. This veteran referee, in the first 5 minutes, he makes 3 of the worst calls in America. Michigan, 2 against Michigan State, 1 against Iowa. Neither one of the coaches said a word. Neither one of the coaches. So now, Ed Hightower, when he finally gets enough nerve to blow his whistle, I make my first call after about 10 minutes. It's the right call.
Yeah.
Judd Heathcote, and it's the correct call. Judd Heathcote jumped up, and so I said, I knew it. Richie, where did this young kid come from? You will never make it. I'm going to make sure you're fired from the Big Ten. You can't make it. So we get through the game. Let me tell you, doing the right thing, even when it's unpopular. Michigan State is on the road. The last play of the game, I'm on national TV, CBS. Billy Packer is doing the game. There's an out-of-bounds play. It's my call. It's right on the sideline. The coach, Heathcote, could see it. Certainly, Iowa could see it, Lead Houston. Now, the kid barely stepped on that sideline. I could have easily said, I didn't see that call.
Right.
I could have said that. Do the right thing even when it's not popular.
Yep.
Blow my whistle.
Great advice.
Made the call. Iowa lost the game by 1. Judd Heathcote jumps up. Great call. Now, wait a minute. He's the same guy the whole game that was saying, you'll never make it. You're going to get fired. And I made the right call. From that point, the coaches in the Big Ten and across the country began to say, who is this young kid?
Yeah.
I refereed my first Final Four at 34 years old. I worked 7 Final Fours in a row.
Holy smokes.
In a row.
That's not normal.
Not normal. You go back, I think that's the first time it's been done in the history of the game.
That's amazing.
So, again, the story that I tell young people, do the right thing even when it's not popular. Yeah. Do the right thing when people aren't watching you. That's the value system that you want to build your life around. You can't please everyone. As superintendent, okay, I never tried to please my employees. Every decision that I made it in the interests of the young people. Every decision when I refereed, I made it in the best interests of those players. And I would tell them up front, I'm going to tell you one time to get your shirt tail in. This is my game. You're not going to be walking around with your shirt tail out. I'm going to tell you, if I tell you to get your hands off, I'm trying to help you.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to trust me. I'm not going to keep telling you that.
Yeah.
And that was the relationship I had with coaches. I would throw my hand up when I said, this is it. I would listen. I never had rabbit ears. I would listen to coaches when they griped and complained. Because, I had the philosophy, I'm not always right. I'm not always right. Yep. And if I don't react, but give that coach an opportunity to disagree with me, and he goes and looks at the film, he's going to come back and say, you know what? That guy was right. And, he treated me with respect. Okay? But when I throw my hand up, and I'm the guy that made this a national mechanic, when I do this, that's it. Don't say another word.
Right. This is your warning.
That's it. And that's how I've lived my life, I believe in second chance for young people in general. Yeah. But I'm not going to keep giving you chance after chance.
Yeah. I love that. So what? I mean, you made a ton of calls, right? Obviously, in a 36-year career, but not every one of them was the right call. So what did you do when you did mess up and miss a call?
If I missed a call, and I would go in when it was even not popular, I'd go and break down every every call that I
So
made.
after the game.
After the game.
During the game,
And
did you
during
do
the-
a makeup
Yes.
call?
No makeup. If I missed a call during the
always-
game, let me tell you what I would do. I would tell the coach,
That's on me.
I missed that call.
Yeah.
I missed that call. I would tell the player, but I'm not going to keep.
It does make you feel better, though. I mean, I coached 8th grade basketball right now, and a ref the other night said that he goes, "Hey, sorry, I missed that." He took ownership, and I'm like, you know what?
What
Makes
do you
me
say?
Feel better.
You know, and that's the bottom line. That is the bottom line. You know, you don't need to alibi. You don't need to make excuses. You don't need to try to justify it. I missed a call.
Yeah.
Our coach, and I tell young people when I'm working with them, just say, "Coach, you may be right," even that you got it right.
Yeah.
Just say, "Coach, you may be right,"
Yeah.
because you're not going to win that moment when the temperature is high.
Yeah.
You've got to bring the temp down. Coach, you may be right. You may be right. I didn't say you were.
That's right.
You may be right. Okay. Dean Smith was one of my all-time favorite coaches. I can remember we were doing a game with him, and one of my crew members missed a call so bad. I was the lead referee, and I could not get him this. I could not get this official to change the call. I tried to get him. I called Dean Smith the next day and said, "Coach, I have to be able to live with myself. We missed that call." That was the respect that Coach. When I received my doctorate, there were 2 people who reached out to me right away, and I don't know how they found out, and congratulated me on my doctorate of education. Dean Smith, John Thompson.
Wow.
I think about that now, and
biggest
the bottom
legends.
line. See, I was not refereeing those guys consistently like what I was in the Big Ten. I would only catch those guys in tournament play or when the ACC played the Big Ten.
Yep.
But they watch. They know who the good officials are, and they know every official's breaking point.
Yeah. How did you stay a student of the game in education and basketball? Because you really think about it, you're growing 2 careers parallel at the same time, right?
You're growing 2 careers parallel. You don't change, okay? And how do you raise? There's so many things. As I talk to various groups, I get asked a question on a regular basis. How are you able to keep the 3 entities together, and those entities of family, my professional job as an educator, and my refereeing? You don't change. First of all, family is more important than anything else. My wife and I have been married 49 years. We have 2 daughters, both successful. And as we were rearing our kids, both of our kids went to my school. We always believed in quality over quantity. Quality over quantity.
Yep.
Quality time over quantity. There are people who are together 24 hours a day and can't stand each other.
Right.
If my daughters knew, and even today, if they want me at something, when they were younger, they'd go in and tell my secretary, would you put this on Dad's schedule? If they wrote it on there, it was important to them.
Yep.
Now, they knew that they couldn't go in there and write every day, you
Right.
want me here.
Yeah.
You got to share me. But if they put something on my calendar and I had a game, guess what? No, I got off that game.
Yeah.
It was family. Now, decision making. I'm in the decision making business in education. I'm in the decision making business in refereeing.
Yeah. By the second.
Every second you're making a decision on someone's livelihood. In education, it's about educating kids for the next step in their life. Refereeing, I'm working with kids and I'm making decisions about their careers. I can put them on the bench with a cheap foul or a bad call
Yep.
and at the wrong time, and they're penalized. So you have to always be cognizant of that and keep that in the forefront. Before every game, I would go into the restroom by myself for a moment and I would say a little prayer. Lord, please give me the wisdom, the knowledge to not injure or hurt someone tonight.
Yep.
And that's the same thing as I went to my office. Give me the wisdom, knowledge. You can't get too big, as we like to call it, or see yourself as too important for what this business is about. Yeah. You're in the people business. You're in the helping business, the assistance business. Now, does that mean that you're going to allow somebody to do what the heck they want? And as I told an individual once, I was a young principal, and everybody knew that I was very religious. Religion was always a priority with my family. So this guy comes in, and he is just being a first-class jerk. I'm a principal, and he knew I was. He was a first-class jerk. And I said to him, I said, "Sir, I said, let's get an understanding here." I said, "This is obvious." He said, "You're religious and all of this," and I said, "Let's get an understanding here. Don't take my religious belief or my kindness as a form of weakness. If you make that statement again, you're going to find out just who I am." Right. So again, that's the extreme.
Right. Let them know where you stand.
You have to. Yeah. Don't take this goodness as a form of weakness.
I love that.
And the same thing when I work with coaches. Yep. Coaches, I'm going to listen to you for a moment, but when I give you that stop sign, that's it.
I've reached my limit.
Don't say another word. If you say another word, there's something else coming.
I love it. So let's talk about the Flying Illini. Let me tell you a quick story. So my grew up in Mattoon, as I said. My mom's cousin was, I think, next door neighbors to Lou Henson. So we got to know them, and I was lucky enough in 1989 they had their Final Four dinner. I got invited, my mom and dad and I.
89, we're in Seattle?
Yes.
I was there.
Yeah. So I get to go to the dinner back in Champaign, and I sit next to Andy Kaufman.
Oh, yes.
Remember Andy
One
Kaufman?
of my favorite.
34, I believe, number 34. And I got to try his Final Four ring on. And it was really cool. It was a great night. I met, Kendall Gill and Ken Battle and Nick Anderson. Stephen Bardo and Kendall Gill have both been on this podcast, which has been awesome.
Good people. I know both of them very well.
But talk about the Flying Illini, because a lot of people from Illinois listen to this. Our Missouri friends will just have to listen to it,
sure.
Right? The Flying Illini, 1989. Talk about that team and over your career. How did they rank? What'd you like about them? What'd you like about Lou Henson?
Let's talk about what was the greatest shot. What shot was that?
Well, my greatest shot was the turnaround shot at the Indiana game that Nick Anderson from half court turns around, throws it up.
Who do you think was the lead referee on that game?
That guy.
You got it right here, Ed Hightower. And let me tell you a little story about that game.
The greatest.
That play. You remember Indiana went down and scored. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. They scored. And Coach Henson called the timeout right away. Mm-hmm. Coach Knight all he wanted to know was how much time I was going to put back on the clock, because there was no way in the world on the baseline, even though the kid could run. He could run.
Yep.
There's no way in the world. I thought, Coach Knight or anyone else thought that ball, first of all, was going to get across half court, and they were going to be able to get it up and score. I was the lead referee. I put the ball in play. I saw it all and witnessed it all. And then, of course, I went to the Final Four with them that year in Seattle. Yeah. And
battle in Seattle.
oh yeah, and Michigan was there.
Emil Robinson making some
Michigan
free
was
throws.
there. Seton Hall and Duke.
Yeah.
You see.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's right.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And so I didn't. They didn't assign me to the Illinois semifinal because I was from Illinois, and again, all of that. You know, back then they were very conscious and cognizant of those kinds of situations. But again, there were a couple of calls there that Coach Henson
That might have been
disagreed
one of the
with.
biggest jumps of my night when Nick Anderson made that shot. I'm like, oh my God, it's unbelievable. So talk about Lou Henson, the Lou dude.
Coach Henson was a great person.
Yeah.
Number one, he was a great humanitarian. Number two, he was one of the most underrated coaches in the game. Underrated. I just thought, and by the way, I knew all of the coaches back then, know them all now.
Yeah.
Okay. Coach Henson not only was a great person, but he was a great tactician. The kids had to play defense or they didn't stay in the game. Now, at times, we would get, you guys would get upset that he would pull a guy so quickly. If you didn't play defense, you were coming out of the game.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's just a bottom line. Now, maybe that happened a little too often, if you want to criticize. But I have the greatest respect for Coach Henson and what he stood for. And I did a podcast on Coach Henson when he passed away, and the respect that I have for that man and what he brought to the game.
Yeah.
And as a human being, and his willingness to help others. And I just think that he did not get the credit. Now, did they lose some games? Yes, they lost some close games. But when you look at his body of work, you won't find anyone that put as comprehensive and complete body of work together as Coach Henson.
Yep.
Look at his overall. When he was at Centenary,
Yep.
a lot of people don't know he wouldn't take that job unless they integrated his coaching staff. That's the type of humanitarian
Looking after his people.
looking at society and what it meant.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a great humanitarian. Great humanitarian.
So were you around with the Fab Five?
What was the greatest situation with the Fab Five?
Don't tell me you were doing that game. Was that
What-
1992? The
What game?
timeout.
Well, wait a
from
minute.
Chris
What
Webber?
was the greatest? What was the when you talk about the Fab Five? What are they known for? The one single moment in time.
Well, the timeout.
I was the lead referee on that game with the Fab Five in New Orleans.
Did you make that call?
I was the lead referee and made the call. I had told.
I was mad at you that night.
Why is that?
I was a Michigan fan at that point. I liked the Fab Five.
Well, I did too. Let me tell you. Let me tell you about the Fab Five very quickly. When the Fab Five came on the scene, they changed the culture of sports
Yeah.
and society forever.
Yeah.
And that group, whatever you want to say about them, we weren't ready for their antics. With the long pants, the different
Black
colored
socks,
socks, and their swagger and their trash talk.
Yeah.
We weren't ready for that. The commissioner of the Big Ten said to me, "You're going to live with that group." And there were 3 referees, and we were all educators. We worked
These
more.
are your babies.
You're going to live with them, and you're gonna keep them in check. And Jalen Rose, he's one of the smartest young people, and he has a sense of humor. He would talk trash out there, and one night, and just a great individual, really. And so Jalen, he would do a dunk on you and get in your face and all of that. So I'm working him at Northwestern. And so I got so upset with him. I grabbed him by the arm and I took him over to Steve Fisher. Fisher was from Centralia, the Centralia area. And so I said, Coach, I said, now, I am not going to have Jalen. I would not call this right. I'm not going to have number 34, whatever his number was, embarrass a player like what he did. If he does that again, I'm going to throw him out of the game. It's not going to be just a technical foul. This is his official warning. Now, only Jalen. After the game, Jalen, he was doing the interview. Well, I noticed that you and referee Hightower were having a discussion tonight. What was that all about? Only Jalen. Well, you know how a Principal Hightower is. He thought he was back in school, and he threatened me with a detention.
I love it.
That's Jalen.
And
The coach, Juwan Howard.
Yeah.
He was my go-to guy back then. If we had an issue with the rest of the group, which there would be time.
He was the ringleader.
No. He was to. Oh no, not at all. We'd go to Juwan and say whatever his number was.
25.
You gotta take care of this, and he would. I mean, you could tell that he was a leader. Yeah. He was a leader all the way back then.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't surprise any of us that, I know he had a hard time last year and all, but that's okay. He's still a leader. We make mistakes, but he is just a wonderful young person.
So talk about the traits you saw and some of the greatest players that, obviously went through college, played in the NBA. You saw them all. Talk about those traits, but apply that to the person listening to this podcast right now that's in the business world or the education world, the medical world, whatever it may be. What did you see there that can be applied to the office?
Perseverance.
Okay.
Goal setting. When at the toughest moment, that's when those individuals really showed and demonstrated their true value system. And when I talk about value system, that toughness, that willingness to give a little extra, that willingness, and I use this with young people, and it's getting a little old now. The guy's name was Herschel Hawkins from Bradley.
Yeah.
He's one of my all-time favorite players. I asked him once. He was a great player. Remember, he was the 88 Player of the Year over Danny Mannings, and that was my first Final Four with Kansas. Well, Danny ended up being the Player of the Year, and I never get into who should be the Player of the Year, but Herschel Hawkins really should have been the Player of the Year that year. But Herschel Hawkins was one of my all-time favorites. He was one of the great jump shooters, as you know. Yeah. So we would have to go to be at the game an hour and a half before game time. Okay. Herschel Hawkins, if he had missed the game before, wherever he missed a shot from, that next game, an hour and a half before game time, the lights aren't even on yet. He's out there practicing that shot that he missed. And I asked him when I called him Hawk. I said, Hawk, man, you're a great player. Why are you practicing at an hour and a half before game time? And you're coming off and you're acting as if here's a screen. Here's the jump shot. Why do you do that? He says, because that shot is going to come up again. Yep. Now, you take that in life. You learn from experiences. It's going to come up again. Yeah. And if you've rehearsed it, then you know how to react. I used to get in front of a mirror at home and rehearse my mechanics. People used to say, boy, Hightower, boy, look at his mechanics. That was not by accident. You have to, everything has to be in sync. And here's the thing, when you get into that situation, you got 50,000 people in the arena at a Final Four.
Yeah.
You got millions watching. You can't think about it. You got to react. You're not
So true.
over. You got to react to the situation at the moment. And that's life.
Mm-hmm.
That's life.
Solid. Man, tons of takeaways. Last few questions. So I talk about this all the time on these podcasts, is fears. The fears we put in our mind. How many of the fears have actually blown up to the magnitude you put them in your mind to be?
Well, as a young person, when I was in fourth grade, my fourth grade teacher said I would never be anything. She called me dumb, called me retarded. Wow. In fourth grade in the South. My fifth grade teacher, Miss Jackson, she took those fears away. She said, you can be anything and anybody you want to be. The fear is what you imagine it to be. I never forgot that. I never forgot that. And with that, I say you prepare for that, for the uncertainties. And when you get into that moment, now, let me be clear with you. Before every game, I don't care the magnitude of a game, if it was a game with Lewis and Clark and Belleville, Swick at that time. I'm just using that as an example. I would have to go to the restroom. I would say that prayer before I walked out there, because that was those were the nerves. But once I threw that ball up, no fear.
Yeah.
You're prepared. You're prepared mentally, physically. You know the rules, and you just react.
It's so true. And then, I even said this to Matt right before we started recording this. You were stepped outside, and I said, it's funny, after 385 guests, you still got the little bit of the nerves, right?
If you don't,
you don't care. I heard Tiger Woods say that, right? If he goes, if the day I stop being nervous on the first tee is when I'm done.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
So that matters. That matters. So let's see. So when you think about reading, how important has that been in your career?
Oh, absolutely. You have to. We have a saying in church. You have to study to show yourself approved. That's an old saying in church. Well, it's the same thing with education. I read a lot. I don't read just to read, but I read a ton, particularly on the subject matters that are important to me.
Yeah.
Education. When I was in education, I read every article I could get my hands on leadership, decision making, working with kids, understanding the dynamics of what I was going to be faced with. Yeah. Refereeing, I knew that rule book back and front. Leadership, I would always read articles about leadership and decision making, okay? Because that, you learn, if you can just pick up one little nugget, it's going to make you better at what you do.
Yep. So I'll close with this one. I'm anxious to see. I've never asked this question because I just read it this morning. So I read, my deal is at least 10 pages a day, every day. If I can do that, you're going to read a lot of books. And so I read this today, and it made me think. I sent it to a couple buddies, but it said, basically be careful of the feedback that you take. Not everything is for you. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's for me, but it may not be for both of us, right? And it said, be careful, because the boiling water that hardens the egg softens the carrot. So when you hear that, what do you think?
Well, when I see that, and when I think of it, when I see it, when I believe that, you listen. You never not listen. Okay,
Yep.
but you better have the intestinal fortitude and the smartness to be able to decipher. That's the big difference right there.
Yep. Mr. Harshbarger, my 8th grade history teacher, said you got 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them proportionally.
You got it.
Dr. Ed Hightower, man, this has been an absolute blast. Thanks for being with me, man.
Pleasure's all mine, Brett.
Thanks for being on the Circuit of Success.
You got it, babe. Thank you.